Chris looks like he's on the floor.
What's that?
I said, oh, thank you, Chris. I was getting a little dizzy.
I just jumped. Yeah, I just jumped up now.
Yeah.
It's the angle of the screen.
Yep. I like your background, Justin. Isn't that a Tyrannosaurus Rex?
It is. Yeah. Otherwise known as a dinosaur. It's otherwise known as a dinosaur.
Yeah, I know my dinosaurs.
Apparently, they did have feathers, is what they think now. So you need a new background with feathers.
This is just my pre-meeting background.
He looks like your best friend. Peering over your shoulder.
You know, I could go to the double date one.
Oh my goodness. Oh my God.
And I just have to sit here while they're back and forth while they're eating my head.
Yeah. What is that, mother and baby?
I don't know. I think they're dating.
Looks that way.
All right, enough of this frivolity.
Yes.
Oh, that's more you.
Well, there are dinosaurs in my garden too, you know.
Wow. That's pretty.
Laura, are we good to get started? Are you ready?
I am ready. I don't know if you want to wait for city manager. If not.
Oh, is he no longer? I thought he was in the room with you.
Well, no, he's not. But I guess we can begin. He's getting some assistance.
Yeah, we'll get started, and if we might hit pause if he really has technical difficulties, but he can always just join you. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Amy Bova.
Here.
Lynn Underwood Segley.
Here.
Catherine E. Leonard. Angela McCalla.
Here.
Justin S. McLaughlin.
Here.
Jean Marie Napolitano.
Here.
Susan D. Taylor.
Councilor Taylor, you are muted.
Thank you. I'm here.
There is a quorum present, Madam Chair.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If anyone would like to speak in the Citizens Forum, now is the time. And the Citizens Forum is for members of the public to speak on any items that are not a part of the docket. So if you are in the meeting and you would like to speak on an item, you can either if you're in the Zoom app, you can either press the raise hand button, or if you're called in, you can press *9, and it will be limited to 3 minutes. So if there's anyone who would like to speak on any item that's not currently on the docket and speak in the Citizens Forum, now is the time. Okay, it looks like that has It doesn't look like we have anyone that is looking to speak, so we can close the citizen forum and move on.
The consent calendar?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the consent calendar in its entirety.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry.
Councilor McCallum?
I want to move actually to suspend the rules and add the polling resolution to the docket.
Second.
There's a motion, a second, to suspend the council rules and add an item to docket. And I believe that this item, introduced by Councilor McCalla, has been sent to the full council by the clerk. Is that correct?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And so the discussion we would have right now is just on the suspension of the rules to add item, and then if it is added, then the discussion of the actual resolution itself will be at that point. So there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the council?
I would ask that the motion indicate that it would be placed after item number 7, so that it's taken up on in the resolution section of the docket.
Councilor McCall, would you like to amend your motion, please?
Yeah, that's fine. I'd like to amend the motion to reflect to move to suspend the rules and add the polling resolution as item 8 in the resolution section of the docket.
And I second that motion by Councilor McCallum.
So is there any further discussion on the motion to amend the rules and add the polling resolution as item number 8 in the docket?
I think it would become item 7A. I'll defer to the city clerk. We already have an 8, so.
I think that you can leave it as number 10, and if
Okay.
it was added, it would just be number 10 is being heard after item number 7.
Okay, that's fine then. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will hold the roll. Councilor Segley?
Aye.
Councilor Leonard? Aye. Councilor McCalla?
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano?
Sorry, aye.
Councilor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes.
At this time, Madam Chair, I'd like to suggest we do some housekeeping and vote to receive the letters from the ACLU, Common Cause, and the HES Greening Urban Spaces Working Group, which we received today, which may become germane during the council meeting. So if we just vote to receive them and put them in the record at this time.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Councilor McLaughlin, just to clarify, all 3 of those items are related to recently added resolution?
2 are related to item number 10. 1 is related to an item in the consent calendar. It relates to the North End Urban Plan.
That's what I thought, but I just wanted to make sure because I wasn't clear. So yeah, that's fine. I mean, I was gonna move to add those when we discuss them, but I'm fine with adding them now. And I believe the clerk should have those items.
There was one I don't believe I have. You indicated from the HES. Is that a separate one?
It was an email that was sent. It was sent to us. It's a letter. It was sent to us via email this morning. I'd be more than happy to readdress it to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Is there any further discussion on the receipt of those items? Hearing none, I will hold the roll call vote. Councilor Segley?
Aye.
Councilor Leonard? Aye. Councilor McCalla?
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councilor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes.
So, Madam Chair, I believe the next item is the consent calendar,
Yes.
and I would move that we approve it in its entirety.
Second,
There is a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. I would make a motion that we consider items number 1D and 1E separately.
Second, it's fine.
Also, I would like to remove B2.
Okay. So I move that we, or well, I guess Councillor Taylor, can you make the motion to approve without those 3 items?
Happily. So, Madam Chair, I move that we approve the consent calendar in its entirety with the exception of a B2 and D and E.
second,
There's a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, I will hold the roll call vote. Councillor Segley?
Aye.
Councillor Leonard?
Aye.
Councillor McCalla?
Aye.
Councillor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councillor Napolitano?
aye.
Councillor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes.
Application for a special event license, Island Moving Company, VA Island Moving Company out of the Ruin film, Cardines Field.
Yes, I removed this from the consent calendar because I would just like the council to, I'm going to make a motion that we waive the fee for the use of Cardines Field for this event.
Second,
There is a motion and a second to waive the fee for the usage of Cardines Field. And I also spoke to Island Moving Company about this, and I do think it's a good idea to do so, especially during this time. And I believe that in speaking with the city manager that he has said that that is very possible. Do we know if he has been able to join the meeting, Madam Clerk?
Are you Charles? Or
No,
Charles?
the city manager.
Oh, the city manager, I'm sorry. Is that an, yes? You need to, okay, he's in, yes, I need to get up from my chair.
Okay.
He's,
Madam Chair,
Councillor Napolitano?
in terms of waiving the fee, that's usually the work of the council.
Yes, I know that just in speaking with the city manager, he had been in communication with Island Moving Company as well, and I just wanted to make sure that we all had the same information from them.
Thank you.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd love to get, and I apologize for whatever's going on with my system. I have no idea. They're working on it right now. The computer system, that is. We'd love to recapture the extra cleaning costs, but generally the amount of money is small. So under these circumstances, we don't have any objection.
Thank you. Okay, is there any further discussion on the motion to waive the fee for the usage of Cardines Field? I'll hold the excuse me, I'm sorry. I'll hold the roll call vote on that item. Councillor Segley? Councillor Leonard?
aye.
Councillor McCalla?
Aye.
Councillor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councillor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councillor Taylor?
Absolutely. Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes. And I will make the motion that we approve this item as well.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve, and I will hold the roll call vote on the approval. Councillor Segley?
Aye.
Councillor Leonard?
Aye.
Councillor McCalla?
Aye.
Councillor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councillor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councillor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes.
Communication from VHB.
Madam Chair, I move that we receive this communication from VHB.
Second.
There is a motion and a second to receive. This item is a communication from BHB, who is the contractor for the Rhode Island Department of Transportation regarding some of the ongoing work being done as part of the Pell Bridge ramp realignment. And this is regarding the remediation plans for the shared use path. And I just wanted to have us consider it separately in case there was any discussion by the council or anyone from the public to be had on this item. Hearing none, I will hold the roll call vote on the receipt. Councillor Segley,
Aye.
Councillor Leonard,
Aye.
Councillor McCalla,
Aye.
Councillor McLaughlin,
Aye.
Councillor Napolitano,
Aye.
Councillor Taylor,
Aye.
Mayor Bova, aye. The motion passes.
Communication from Patricia Reynolds, Director of Planning and Economic Development, North End Urban Plan.
Madam Chair, I move that we receive the North End Urban Plan from Director Reynolds and refer it to the Planning Board.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this item?
Madam Chair,
Councilor McLaughlin?
I waited for somebody else to jump in, but one of the letters which I asked us to vote to receive was sent to us from the Greening Urban Spaces Working Group, and I just want to point out that it raises some interesting points, and I don't think we should just, ignore the fact that we got it, and it's asking the city to consider some action. So I hope when we receive this, we recognize that perhaps the city administration needs to reach out to the HES and see what it is we can do to respond to the issues that have been raised in this letter.
I agree, Councilor McLaughlin, and I have a lot of confidence in Ms. Reynolds that she will work with the rest of the planning department and the planning board to make sure there is plenty of book discussion and input throughout the consideration. And I would also like to ask that if possible, it would be, I think, a good idea to have like a specialized focused meeting by the board on this item for public input, given that it is such a important document for the city.
You're speaking of the planning board.
Yes. Yeah, thank you I didn't mean the council, I meant the planning board.
I think originally it was understood that when it went to them that they would be doing some sort of a public, today would be a Zoom meeting, but yeah.
Yeah, I just want to reinforce it. Is there further discussion on the council?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'm not seeing the method tonight for raising the hand with a click of the mouse, so I'm raising my hand. I just want to add another voice to the importance of continuing to build on the great community outreach that was done prior to the COVID shutdown. And I've just lost my video. I'm not sure why. Oh, co-host has stopped my video. Anyway, NBBJ was starting with good community outreach and at the end of January up until the very beginning of March, which ultimately wasn't that much time, and they had to deal with the reality of the COVID restrictions, but there's still more outreach and more of that process that should be part of this phase. So I just want to add my support to that letter that we received from the HES and Councilor McLaughlin's comments.
Thank you, Councilor Taylor. Councilor McCallum?
Yes, I think that it's extremely important. So part of MBBJ's journey was to gather and collect the visions on how and have this conversation in regards to what our Newport residents envisioned in regards to what they thought the space should look like. The next step should really be, how are we going to communicate effectively in regards to the master plan and the North End Urban Development Plan in general, in order for a public commentation to really have a robust discussion. And so in my opinion, I think that conversation needs to be many and continual. So.
Thank you, Councilor McCalla.
Just to chime in, the HES letter raised, and Councilor McCalla is suggesting as well, that the digital input is not always as effective, that a lot of the community that's going to be impacted needs to go to in-person or non-digital platforms for providing their input.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the council?
If I could just, if I may,
Councilor McLaughlin.
the document we're about to receive and send to the planning board is an important document. But to a very, very large extent, it's an aspirational document, and it's probably going to be years, 10, 20 years before a lot of what's defined in it even comes close to being realized. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have a robust process as we move forward. But I mean, before people get excited about maybe there are some issues with regard to the public outreach and the process up to now, we're nowhere near to buying a brick and trying to build a wall or anything. But what we are close to is a year since we created a moratorium. And to the extent that they can, I think the city staff and us need to make sure that we move forward, so that it's not likely, but if Copy and Auto showed up next week and said, well, I'm ready to build, we still don't have zoning in place. And these things have to be done together, but the North End Urban Plan it's not a concrete plan. It's not a build to, it's like an alphabet, lots of letters, and you can make lots of letters, lots of words and concepts out of it. But the zoning, we need to have the zoning for the North End. And it's not clear exactly where that zoning is, but we shouldn't forget it has been about a year, and whatever we can do to move that along, we should do that.
Right.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor McLaughlin. I do agree. And I think that those two products really need to be pushed forward together, hand in hand. Is there any further discussion? I'm also going to actually open to see if there's anyone from the public who would like to be heard, in case there is anyone from HES who would like to add a comment to their letter. Okay, we do have someone.
Okay, Rex LeBeau.
Hey, my name's Rex LeBeau. My pronouns are they, them, theirs, and I live at 118 Ruggles Avenue, and just want to thank the council for receiving the communication. I'm one of the people on the Greening Urban Spaces group, and yeah, public input and making sure that the demographic representation is that we have the data saying where people live. That way we can be sure that the public input actually represents the people who actually live in the North End, who live in the North End Urban Plan Study area. Just, yeah, going forward, be great to see that happen. And yeah, thank you again for speaking it and discussing it.
Thank you. Okay, I am going to hold the roll call vote on this item. Councillor Segley?
Aye.
Councillor Leonard? Councillor Leonard, you're muted.
Aye.
Thank you. Councillor McCall?
Aye.
Counselor McLaughlin,
Aye.
Counselor Napolitano,
Aye.
Counselor Taylor,
Aye.
Mayor Bova, aye. The motion passes.
2020 annual entertainment license renewal, Class A and B, Salvation Cafe Inc., DBA Salvation Cafe, 140 Broadway, 10 a.m. through midnight.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve this application for the renewal of an entertainment license for 2020 for the Salvation Cafe.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the council? Is there anyone from the public who would like to be heard on this item? Hearing none, I will hold the roll call vote. Counselor Segley,
Aye.
Counselor Leonard,
Aye.
Counselor McCallum,
Aye.
Counselor McLaughlin,
Aye.
Counselor Napolitano,
Aye.
Counselor Taylor,
Aye.
Mayor Bova, aye. The motion passes.
Application for a new vittling license, MMKJR Inc., DBA A1 Pizza, 306 Broadway.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve this application for a new vittling license for A1 Pizza.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any discussion by the council on this item? Is there anyone from the public who would like to be heard? We have someone with the phone number ending in 1465. Can you please introduce yourself with your full name and address for the record?
Good evening. This is Attorney Stephanie Maloney. I am appearing on behalf of MMKJR, and I just wanted to let you guys know that we are here if you have any questions on this item.
Thank you very much. Does anyone from the council have any questions for the attorney? I think that we're all set. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
You too. Okay, I will hold the roll call vote on this item. Counselor Segley,
Aye.
Counselor Leonard,
Aye.
Counselor McCallum,
Aye.
Counselor McLaughlin,
Aye.
Counselor Napolitano,
Aye.
Counselor Taylor,
Aye.
Mayor Bova, aye. The motion passes.
A public hearing on an entertainment license expansion, Class A indoors, Kinsley's LTD, DBA Newport Blues Cafe.
Madam Chair, I'm going to recuse myself from this item.
Thank you, Counselor Segley. This is a public hearing on an entertainment license expansion for the Newport Blues Cafe. Is there anyone from the public who would like to be heard on this item? And just a reminder, you can press *9 if you're on the phone. We do have someone. Can you please identify yourself with your full name and address for the record?
Yes, Mayor Bova, it's Matthew Leys, an attorney representing the Newport Blues Cafe. We're here, myself and my client are here remotely and are available to answer any questions. I can tell you that the reason for the request is that, as you may recall, we were granted licenses back on June 24th by the council in conjunction with the transfer of a liquor license. And at that time, the entertainment license, there was a condition specially imposed that we keep the windows and doors closed during entertainment. And kind of upon reflection, since my client has opened at this point, and upon reflection with the COVID-19 situation and consultation with experts and getting information about the importance of ventilation, we decided to file this application to seek to be allowed to have the windows and doors open, and you'd still be subject to the noise ordinance if there were any issues. We would note that there has been no objection. This was advertised, and obviously public hearing of any objections to the application. If anyone has any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Lees. Does anyone from the council have any questions for either the owner or the attorney or the company?
Madam Chair,
Councilor McLaughlin?
I have a question for the solicitor. It's my understanding that the requirement that doors and windows be closed is in the ordinance. Which people keep saying this when we grant licenses, but and so my question would be, if it's in the ordinance, this is not the way to change it. And then to you and both the city manager, there are other businesses in town that would be bound by the similar restrictions, and this wouldn't be the only place that might come and ask for us. So maybe this is a broader issue.
Yeah, I don't have the ordinance in front of me, but it may be in what the section that has the rules and regulations, the general rules and regulations that state that during entertainment, they should be the windows closed and the doors, windows and doors closed. I think the practice was, excuse me, in the past for a number of years, we would issue these Class A licenses with condition. And then recently, we have not been doing that. There was I don't want to say policy, but some of the discussion on the council in the last couple of years is that we do have a noise ordinance. And if windows were open, doors open, they would still be subject to the noise ordinance. I right now cannot tell you, I don't have the ordinance in front of me. So I apologize. I can't answer that exactly where, if that condition is in the ordinance and where it's located.
If I may just continue, at one level, I'm not predisposed to objecting to doing something like this. I recall that we allowed the businesses on Broadway several years ago to leave their doors and windows open, and it didn't cause a problem. It actually, I think, changed the vitality of the street, made it interesting, but it was something we did explicitly for a class of businesses. And that I'm just concerned that if we're going to do something like this, we know the breadth of what it is we're doing. And I would just suggest that we haven't heard from anybody yet because they may not know what we're doing, but I might consider restricting the hours of operation, which is what we did on Broadway. I think we let them leave their doors and windows open till either 10 or 11 o'clock at night. So I might make a motion to continue this and ask the administration to, do a little research to find out what the impact and implications are. But clearly from a COVID standpoint, we may need to be making some new rules. But I don't know that we should be doing it on the fly at a council meeting tonight.
Yeah, I think those are some good points, Councilor McLaughlin. I am gonna give the floor to Councilor Leonard, who's had her hand up for quite a bit.
I guess what I'd like to ask was, did the neighbors have notice of the expansion?
Yes, Counselor Leonard, the
Okay.
abutters were notified.
And we had no responses?
No, I did not
Okay.
receive any.
I understand what Councilor McLaughlin is saying, and I personally would feel more comfortable if the ordinance, if we find that this is or has been part of an ordinance, and not to make a change in what we had originally granted without knowing more. So I'm not sure if Councilor McLaughlin's conversation a few minutes ago was in the form of a motion to continue or not.
I did make that motion.
Okay,
You could second it.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Councilor Napolitano?
Yeah, I was just going to say, it was pretty standard. We'd add the condition that windows, doors would be closed. At one time, it was a serious problem across the board. I understand what Councilor McLaughlin is saying, and I actually agree with him. But I would feel more comfortable if we continued this and see if it's actually an ordinance or if it's just the condition that we applied to all the bars and restaurants. So, I'm in favor of continuing it until we have a definitive answer from the solicitor.
Yeah, I agree, Councillor Napolitano. Councillor Taylor?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm, in light of what we know now about COVID, I'm really inclined to allow opening up the doors and windows. I think 1 a.m. rather, is problematic. And I'm also very mindful of the fact that, thank heaven the weather turned warm again today, but we don't have too much warm weather left. The next council meeting is 3 weeks away. And I don't know whether Newport Blues is ready to proceed. If we were to give the permission tonight, if it's not prohibited in the ordinance and we were legally authorized to give permission tonight, I don't know whether Newport Blues is ready to go ahead and take advantage of the open windows to promote business. But I'm worried about delaying it 3 weeks into the second week of October, and then we're looking at an ordinance change. So I hope that this issue can reach a resolution fairly quickly, that we can determine what the ordinance specifies, and that we can reach a resolution in a timely fashion that would be meaningful for Newport Blues and other entrepreneurs that may want to increase ventilation.
I think you had a good point, Councillor Taylor, but I do think while it would, I understand there is an extra week in between now and the next council meeting. I think that we do have to be really mindful of change that could have unexpected consequences, given that we're not clear right now in this conversation as to in the ordinance language. Then I think that I would rather be safe than sorry.
Madam Chair?
Councillor Napolitano had her hand up before you, Councillor McGraw.
That's all right. Go ahead.
I'll go back to Napolitano.
No, I just concur with what Councilor McLaughlin. I think we should be looking at it from a full of COVID, because bars and restaurants along Thames Street that certainly would come to the next meeting to ask for their licenses to be to allow that. So I want to wait. I want a definitive answer from the solicitor.
I agree. Before I give the floor to McLaughlin, I was just going to ask if the city solicitor would be prepared to have a memo or something that had more information on a clear path forward for us ahead of the next council meeting, so that we could go to that meeting more prepared.
Absolutely. I'll probably have something out to you next week, early next week.
Thank you. Councilman.
Thank you. I'm sitting here listening, and I actually looked at the ordinance. I couldn't find it myself, so maybe my recollection is weak. But the city manager has the authority to grant permission for people to do things like this under his emergency authorization. So I would modify my motion to continue to just say that we continue it, we come back and we perhaps take it up formally. But if in the interim, the city manager determines that, yes, this is a good thing and it will work, and he comes up with a protocol for making it work throughout the city, I have no objections if he does something.
Thank you, Councilor McLaughlin. Councilor Taylor?
Thank you. I think we're in alignment here. What I imagine is that we could appropriately bring this issue up in one of our COVID briefings, because it does have to do with increasing our business's capacity to serve. And if it's not prohibited in the ordinance, then we are not held back. And as Councilor McLaughlin pointed out, the city manager does even have that authority now. But I'm relieved that Mr. Bean says he can come back with something next week. Thank you. And I've been looking in the ordinance and I can't find it either, so.
Yeah, it may be under there's a couple of different sections it could be in, under the liquor licenses and under business licensing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so there has been a motion by Councilor McLaughlin, seconded, I believe, by Councilor Leonard, to continue this item to the October 14th council meeting, I believe. Yes, October 14th. So I will hold the roll call vote on that item. Councilor Segley is recusing herself. So I will start with Councilor Leonard.
Aye.
Councilor McCall.
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano.
Aye.
Councilor Taylor.
Aye.
Mayor Bova. Aye. The motion passes.
Thank you.
Appointments to boards and commissions.
There are a few different appointments here for the various boards and commissions. And I am going to start with moving to appoint Samuel Goldblatt and David Riley as alternates on the zoning board of review for indefinite terms.
Second.
There is a motion and a second to appoint. Is there any discussion on the council? Hearing none, I will hold the roll call vote. Councilor Segley.
Aye.
Councilor Leonard.
Aye.
Councilor McCallum.
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano.
Aye.
Councilor Taylor.
Aye.
Mayor Bova. Aye. The motion passes. And I'm actually going to make a motion to continue the appointments for the Waterfront Commission. There had been a little bit of a miscommunication in the mayor's office regarding all of the applications, and it seems as though a few may have fallen through the cracks. So I just want to clear that up before we make these appointments. So I move that we continue the appointments to the Waterfront Commission.
Second.
There is a motion and a second to continue. I'll hold the roll call vote. Councilor Segley.
Aye.
Councilor Leonard.
Aye.
Councilor McCall.
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano.
Aye.
Councilor Taylor.
Aye.
Mayor Bova. Aye. The motion passes. And the next item was actually an appointment to the Historic Cemetery Advisory Commission, which, again, they're not sure where a supposed resignation, it may have been submitted and gotten lost in the shuffle as the assistants in the mayor's office transitioned, but there is not a record of that resignation. And so there's not a current vacancy on the Historic Cemetery Advisory Commission, although we know that that is in the works and happening. So I'm going to move to continue this item as well. So I make a motion to continue.
Second.
Is there discussion? Hearing none, I'll hold the roll call vote. Councilor Segley.
Aye.
Councilor Leonard.
Aye.
Councilor McCallum.
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano.
Aye.
Councilor Taylor.
Aye.
Mayor Bova. Aye. The motion passes. I make a motion to appoint Christian Belden to the Aquidneck Island Planning Commission for an indefinite term.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none, I will hold the roll call vote. Councilor Segley.
Aye.
Councilor Leonard.
Aye.
Councilor McCallum.
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano.
Aye.
Councilor Taylor.
Aye.
Mayor Bova, aye. The motion passes.
Resolution regarding Easton's Beach parking for City of Newport residents.
This is a resolution that was introduced by Councillor Leonard, so I will give the floor to Councillor Leonard for discussion, or for introduction, excuse me.
I asked for this resolution to be put on the docket because of COVID and all the stress that people have had. And then there was the memorandum that, and the ordinance that the parking fees at Easton's Beach would be in effect through the end of October. So this resolution asks that there'll be no charge for parking fees to residents of Newport beginning October 1st until the official opening of the 2021 season at Easton's Beach. I move passage.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Is there discussion?
I have a question about implementation.
Councillor McLaughlin?
I haven't been down to the beach, so I'm not exactly sure of how the process works, but I understand you have to pay at a machine. Would a good way of implementing this just be that there won't be any charge for people to park in the City of Newport section of the lot? Or can this be implemented in all the lots? That's a question for the city manager.
We are implementing it, and there are attendants at each lot. So as you go in the lot, they're being informed otherwise. But most of the, as it's been occurring all summer, any one with a resident sticker or a beach sticker rather is funneled into the west lot anyways. And then there's a kind of a dance that goes on in terms of the crowds on the beach. It's really an issue of we do man both gates, so it doesn't really matter. And there's some signage.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a kind of a follow-up question for the city manager, though. I was under the impression that we had not been charging city residents since just after Labor Day.
The Wednesday after Labor Day.
Okay, so this is really already in effect.
Well, yeah, it needs the council's imprimatur. I made the decision because we missed the meeting. I had informed the council that it was something that we were desirous of doing, but then we had that technical glitch. I forget a number of weeks ago, right after Labor Day. We just instructed the staff to go ahead and implement the program. But of course, I need the council's imprimatur on this, I would suggest.
Thank you. Councilor.
I had been going back and forth with the city manager on this. And then we had the meeting that was postponed. So I'm glad that we actually seem to have changed it so there is no charge. And I think that for all the issues that residents have gone through with COVID and so many people in town, that in fact we should consider, depending on our finances, that we actually got numbers for today, to not charge parking for residents that are frequenting a lot of the businesses, the meters, during this time, that have had a really tough time for months. So I guess I would like to ask that we look at all this in terms of our finances to try to help businesses and try to get our economy going, but while at the same time wearing masks and being healthy.
Thank you, Councilor Leonard. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, I'll hold the roll call vote on the passage of this resolution. Councilor Segley?
Aye.
Councilor Leonard?
Aye.
Councilor McCalla?
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councilor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes.
A resolution authorizing the purchase and sale agreement between the Ballard family, the Aquidneck Land Trust, and the City of Newport for assessors Plat 41, Lot 389, granting conservation easements on Assessor's Plat 41, Lots 389 and 390, and creating the Carol C. Ballard Park and Wildlife Preserve.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve this resolution authorizing the purchase and sale.
Second.
There is a motion and a second to approve. I am going to give the floor to the city solicitor briefly to just explain it at a high level, because I know that this is something that's been ongoing to get this in front of us.
Yes, thank you. It's a follow-up from your resolution passed on June 26, 2019, which authorized a memorandum of understanding between the city, the Aquidneck Land Trust, and also the Ballard family for the city to purchase and thereby conserve lot 389 and merge it into the Ballard Park lots. And I'm just gonna, 3 lots are lots 389, 390, and lot 15. So we're purchasing it's really cost neutral to the city, even though we're paying the Ballard family $100,000. The purchase price is from a grant from DEM. Once we purchase it, we are going to grant conservation easements on both lot 389 and lot 390. There's already restrictions on lot 15. And at that time, the Aquidneck Land Trust will pay us $100,000, which we are going to pay over to a endowment fund for care and preservation of the property. So these conservation easements are typical conservation easements. They only allow for passive recreation. The properties have to remain in their natural habitat, their conditions. And basically what you'll see is hiking, walking, and educational activities. The endowment fund is used for preservation and conservation of the park. And the other biggie on the resolution is now you're authorizing it's not the creation, but you're going to name all 3 of the parcels as the Carol C. Ballard Park and Wildlife Preserve.
Thank you, Mr. Solicitor. Councillor, I'm going to open the floor for discussion. Councillor Leonard.
Yeah, I think this is wonderful. Some of us who've been on the council have spent years trying our best to protect open space. We've done it with other parks. This is a big parcel. I'm happy to see that. I worked in the past with the Prince Foundation, and that's how the land was conserved around Spouting Rock and Albee Pond. So for all those organizations and philanthropists who have worked and donated working with the Land Trust to put land conservation and open space in place, I just find this to be very rewarding, and I'm happy to have us look at this, support it, and move forward.
Thank you, Councillor Leonard. I agree. I think this is a really great push forward. I want to thank the city staff and the solicitor's office for working this out, and as well as the Aquidneck Land Trust and the Ballard family. I think it's really wonderful that we're able to expand the land that's being preserved.
If I could just, Chuck Allott is, if anyone had any questions, Chuck Allott is on, I believe, available from the Land Trust, and of course, he was instrumental in getting this in place.
Thank you, Mr. Bean. Councillor Napolitano.
No, I'd just like to echo Kate's comments. I think this is a wonderful thing for the city to have as in terms of open space and a great relationship with the Aquidneck Island Land Trust. So I'm really happy, and I think it's a very nice purchase.
Thank you. I do want to open the floor to Chuck Allott if he does have any comments as well.
Madam Chair and members of the council, I just wanted to indicate that by putting this transaction together, we are creating a 72-acre park and wildlife preserve in downtown Newport, which is, I think, is a truly amazing thing for us to be able to do. So kudos to the efforts of the city and the Ballards to put this together. I think it's a great project.
Thank you, Mr. Allott. Is there any additional discussion on the council?
Madam Chair,
Councilor McLaughlin.
I've had the privilege to meet Les and Carol Ballard. They're wonderful people. I would recommend that at some point in the future that we probably should, create another resolution thanking the Ballard family for all the things they've done in this community. I'm not sure that their presence is as much as it was in past years, but they certainly have left a legacy that is going to benefit Newport for generations, and we probably should reach out and memorialize that at some point in time.
I think that's a fantastic idea, Councilor McLaughlin. They really have done a lot, and Ballard Park is just a wonderful place to walk around and enjoy nature, and I think we're all very lucky to have that. Leonard?
I'll say this, if it weren't for the Ballard family and Dodo Hamilton, the 66 combined acres that are now property owned by both families or foundations of the families, we may have had many houses, many timeshares, many condos sitting right off of Harrison Avenue. So the fact that families care and that we have philanthropy to protect open space, I think speaks a lot for everyone who gives either time or funds to try to make our community better. So I'm happy to see this.
Thank you, Councilor Leonard. Is there any further discussion on the council? Hearing none, I will hold the roll call vote. Councilor Segley?
Aye.
Councilor Leonard?
Aye.
Councilor Gallo?
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councilor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes.
Resolution
Thank you.
requesting the Newport Canvassing Authority to work with the Newport Housing Authority to add additional polling locations for the general election.
This is a resolution that was introduced by Councilor McCalla, so I will give the floor to Councilor McCalla for introduction.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I really sought to do this resolution because understanding that October 6th would be the Canvassing Authority's final decision on the polling locations, I thought it was necessary that we added this to the docket. So I'm going to read the resolution in its full entirety. Hang on. Okay, so whereas the freedom to vote is America's most important political right outside of the original Bill of Rights, and it is also the most hard-won right, and whereas the year 2020 marks the 100th anniversary of the passage of the 19th Amendment and the 55th anniversary of the passage of the Voting Rights Act, making the general election on November 3rd, 2020, a historically significant date for all citizens to exercise their right to vote. And whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has caused disruption and challenges, including the closure and consolidation of 3 Newport polling locations during the September 8th primary for public health related concerns. And whereas closing polling locations adversely impact access for many voters, especially the elderly and disabled, many of whom rely on public transportation. And whereas the alternative polling locations chosen for the September 8th primary were not accessible to public transportation, which could have inadvertently impact or suppress voter turnout. And whereas the canvassing authority is expected to render a decision regarding polling locations and for the November 3rd general election on October 6, 2020. And whereas the elected Newport City Council members have an obligation to ensure all Newporters have an equitable opportunity to exercise the right to vote. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the canvassing authority work with the Newport Housing Authority to relocate the polling places back to Donovan Manor and the Park Home Senior Center, or find other more suitable voting locations for residents of these neighborhoods that considers the transportation and mobility concerns of the residents served by these polling locations. And be it further resolved that the Canvass Authority work with the City of Newport to craft a communication strategy to update voters of these precincts of any changes in a timely manner. Madam Chair, I move passage.
Second.
Thank you. There is a motion and a second to approve. Is there discussion on the council on this item?
Yes, Madam Chair, I would like to read a statement, please.
Councilor Segley?
I'm so happy that this resolution has given me the opportunity to address this issue tonight. The resolution states that the Newport City Council members have an obligation to ensure all Newporters have an equitable opportunity to exercise the right to vote. As the Second Ward resident, I agree and have followed through on this obligation since the primary election. Before this resolution was crafted, I expressed to Councilor McCalla in multiple text messages that I have been in constant contact with the Canvass Authority Chair and the clerk, asking their consideration for a more suitable location for Second Ward residents than the location used in the primary, which was St. John's Church on the Point, instead of the location typically used, Donovan Manor on Chapel Street. I was taken aback by the St. John's primary location, but after communicating with officials, I understood the canvassing authority working with the Rhode Island Board of Elections used that location because of the effects of COVID-19 and the CDC guidelines advising against using Donovan Manor, a residential building. Also, the residents were quite upset that perhaps 1,000 or more people would enter the residence since no one has been able to visit the property since March. Since the primary, I have been working on a location that is more suitable. This is not an easy task, as the Board of Elections must inspect for handicap accessibility, space requirements, and not to mention finding additional poll workers. A building cannot be arbitrarily chosen by the City Council or residents. The Canvassing Authority is the only entity, along with the State Board of Elections, that approves locations. I have spoken to other council members as well about my concerns on this issue. I asked the Canvassing Authority to consider the Edward King House Senior Center, knowing that it is owned by the city, it is handicap accessible, and has the space required for voting machines. The building will also be closed to the public on Election Day, November 3rd. The Canvassing Authority and clerk immediately picked up the ball, knowing that time was of the essence, and asked the Rhode Island Board of Elections to do a preliminary assessment, and it did pass that assessment. The building must now be inspected on Friday morning at 8:30 for further review, and if approved, the Canvassing Authority will be able to vote on that location for Second Ward residents. After that, the Rhode Island Board of Elections must give their final stamp of approval. Why did I not release this information sooner? Because I did not want to create confusion for residents while all is being decided and vetted. I have been waiting for the 8:30 Friday inspection to be completed. For 6 years, I have protected the Second Ward residents' interests and will continue to do so while I sit on this council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Segley. Is there further discussion on the council? Councillor Taylor?
Thank you, Lynn, for your concern. I think all of us identified immediately the issues, and prior to the primary, the issues that were facing the Donovan Manor residents and those in that neighborhood. It's, last minute notice is a problem. Difficulty with public transport to get to the new polling place, and the difficulty that a lot of the seniors have with mobility all give rise to this problem. And the Edward King House is owned by the city, and it's not providing services in its normal way, so it would be free to be used. My concern with the Edward King House, when I looked at the map again, is that it's still a little far for some of the elderly Donovan Manor residents to get to, and there's a bit more of a hillside to deal with, and the busy streets and all that. I had thought of the Elks Club, and I found out from Councillor McCalla that she had also thought of the Elks Club. I realized that's more problematic with permission and being vetted and all of that, but I think that process is at the beginning phase, according to Councillor McCalla. But I just wanted to add that this is good for Second Ward. We still need to look at the Park Home Senior Center question.
And I do think that it's important that we recognize that this is not directing a specific other place. And so it's up to the Board of Canvassers and the Board of Elections to determine what the right location is, and if the King House or another location is the best replacement for Donovan Manor. And I think that the core of this resolution is really just making sure that the canvassing authority and the Board of Elections know that this is something that we're concerned about, and that we want to make sure that all of our residents have the option for their voices to be heard. And that I think probably one of the most important aspects is ensuring that the communications are done once a new polling place is determined. And I won't pretend to know which is the best option for replacing Donovan Manor or the Park Home Senior Center or any other changes that may be put in place by the canvassing authority. My concern for the most part really is in making sure and hoping that the canvassing authority is able to work strategically to ensure that all of our voters know of any changes that would apply to them.
Madam Chair?
Councillor Napolitano has had her hand up, and then Councillor McLaughlin.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, I had talked to people. I know Lynn was checking around for places, and I had talked to canvassing, and the majority of the residents in Donovan had done mail-in ballots for the primary. The workers are going around so that perhaps if they couldn't get to a polling place, they could do it, either a mail-in ballot or somebody may be going over there. That hasn't been determined yet. But I, applaud everybody for working toward some sort of resolution on this.
Thank you, Councillor Napolitano. Councillor McLaughlin?
Yes, I want to make a comment about a couple of sections in it, but the first thing I want to do is make a motion to amend the last resolve to incorporate the following language, which would to update voters of these precincts of any changes in a timely manner, to add, including notification by mail of all impacted voters. I think we should go on record as saying that we agree that that is a good way to do it, and because it's going to cost money that the canvassing authority doesn't have, I think we should speak to that issue because we're going to have to pay for it.
Is that in the
So
form of
that's-
a motion, Councillor McLaughlin?
Pardon?
Okay, I was asking if that was in the form of a motion.
Yeah, that's a motion.
Second.
There is a motion in a second, and the amendment would be to just add to the second resolved at the end, including notification by mail of any affected voters.
To any affected voters, right?
All impacted
affected.
voters.
To all affected voters.
So if they move precinct 2109 or 2103 or 2104, all those people would be notified
Yes.
by mail.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? I'm going to hold the roll call vote for the amendment. Councillor Segley,
Aye.
Councillor Leonard,
Aye.
Councillor Michaela,
Aye.
Councillor McLaughlin,
Aye.
Councillor Napolitano,
Aye.
Councillor Taylor,
Aye.
Mayor Bova, aye. The amendment passes. Is there further discussion on the resolution as amended?
Yes, if I could continue, Madam Chair.
Councillor McLaughlin.
The city manager is keen on telling us that we speak by resolutions, and resolutions are our way of creating law. So I think it's really important that the resolutions, to the greatest extent possible, reflect the reality that we operate under. So in the first resolve, where it talks about the canvassing authority working with a housing authority, we're out of our lane. It's not our job to tell the canvassing authority how to do their jobs. And it's certainly, just even to suggest that they might have some authority to tell the housing authority what they can do. I think we shouldn't have that language in this resolution. We have an extremely competent and professional canvassing authority. If there has been an inadvertent impact over some things that have happened over the last few days, it may have been to unintentionally suggest in some way that our canvassing authority wasn't doing a good job. And yet everything they did was in accordance with state law and under the guidance and the approval of the Board of Elections. I mean, I've had people raise issues to me, and I would just point out to them, there was only one polling place for the presidential primary in June. Only one. And that was at Pell School. Nobody complained about that. Nothing was done to keep people from voting. It's just done to do it as efficiently and as economically as possible. So to suggest in any way that something was done with negative intentions, I think it's been unfortunate, because that wasn't the case. In my era, there used to be a polling place at the Salvation Army for people that lived a mile away down by Braga Park, because that was the closest place they could find a building that people could vote in. It's not always easy to find a place for people to vote in. And clearly, I think the canvassing authority, in the years I've been involved in this, have worked hard to make sure that good locations were found when they could be found. But that doesn't mean that we should be telling them where to find those locations. So I'm troubled by the fact that there's the first couple of lines in there that suggest that the canvassing authority and the housing authority and us were involved in this game. I think that what we should be just saying is that we encourage the canvassing authority to ensure they find voting locations for residents of all neighborhoods that consider the transportation and mobility concerns of the residents served, and leave out the language that talks about the Newport, the housing authority, and Donovan Manor and Park Home. That's their job, and it's not always easy. And Donovan Manor, I think it's on page 5 of the CDC guidance on what to do about COVID. You're not going to invite thousands of voters into a building that hasn't let people come in and visit the people who live there for 6 months. But I think our canvassing authority is capable of addressing all of those factors in arriving at the right conclusion. And So I make a resolution that we delete the reference to the Canvassing Authority and the Housing Authority and Donovan Manor and Park Home from the last resolution and just leave it talking about identifying the Canvassing Authority, identifying suitable voting locations for the residents of those neighborhoods that consider transportation and mobility concerns of the residents served by those polling locations. And that's really what we want them to do. We need to recognize their professionalism and the fact that they work hard every day to do a good job for us. And we should work hard tonight to show respect for them. So that's my motion.
I'll second it.
There is a motion and a second. I will give the floor to Councilor Taylor for comment. She has had her hand up before, and then I will give the floor to Councilor McCall.
Right, I put my hand up before Councilor McLaughlin turned this into a resolution. I just, or a motion, sorry. Yeah, I have been in touch with our canvasser, Tracy Nelson and Caitlin. They've been doing a fine job in a very difficult, very challenging election year. I believe that they've been consulting regularly with the state and that many of the choices that they made, what I came to understand was that in many respects their hands were tied and they had to deal with the situation that they were dealt. I am not reading the language the same way that you appear to be, Councilor McLaughlin. It's not my intention to insult the canvassing authority. We're living in difficult times. Many, many things are turned on their heads. And I think the whereas that could be the most offensive is that whereas the alternative polling locations chosen for the September 8th primary were not accessible by public transportation, which could have inadvertently impacted or suppressed voter turnout. I think that I don't find that so deeply offensive. And with regard to the motion that you've made for the amendment, I think we need to mention Donovan Manor and Park Home because there was also a third precinct, remember, at St. Peter's Lutheran Church, where that polling station was also closed. But because Park Home and Donovan Manor have such an elderly population with mobility issues, I think that's why those two precincts are featured in this resolution. And I feel that it is important to mention those specific populations. That's all I have for now.
Thank you, Councilor Taylor. Councilor McCall.
I'd just like to address a few things. So just again, I think that we're all in agreement that we are working really hard with the Canvassing Authority as well as the Board of Canvassers to communicate, the needs of the residents. And while I can appreciate verbal conversations that are happening, it's not solidified until October 6th. And I can also identify that a lot can change within that time. I think it is our due diligence to make sure that voting in itself should be encouraged at the maximum degree, because it's about voter access. It's about their right to be able to do this. And although I can understand that our canvassing authority has been in contact with the Board of Elections and that their decisions were within the purview of state law, it didn't consider the impact it would have on our neighborhoods. And the reality of the situation is, this is what this resolution calls for. This is the line in the sand. We have an obligation to make sure that our residents have all of the opportunities to be able to come out and vote, and we should be providing that. I also, Councilor McLaughlin, I disagree with your amendment to try to change and take out Donovan Manor and Park Home. Nothing in my resolution insinuates or is in violation of anything, and I really don't feel the need to change that.
Thank you, Councilor McCalla. I would like to voice my agreement that I don't think that at any point does the resolution cast the canvassing authority in a negative light. In the whereas it really clearly says that there were inadvertent impacts. And I think that we need to be really aware that intentions and outcomes can end up being different. And I don't think that there was any intention on the part of the canvassing authority at any time to negatively or adversely impact voting accessibility. I would never think that that would be something that they would do. But we saw an outcome that did occur where there was issues and people were not as informed, or they didn't feel it was as clear, and they had to adjust to the changes. And I think that, again, the crux of it is, okay, we recognize that there were some issues in the outcome and not the intention of the decisions made for the statewide primary election. So how can we learn from that and work to make sure that in the general election in November, we work to not have potential negative impacts? And we might end up doing something that, once it happens, we learn again, oh, that wasn't quite how maybe we should have done it. But I think we're asking the canvassing authority to learn from how things were handled in the primary and make adjustments to make things clearer and a little more well executed for the general. That's how I look at this, and I don't see a need to amend it personally. Is there further discussion, Councilor McCalla?
I'd also like to say one more thing to share with the council, because I'm not sure that everybody's aware. But I had actually attended the Board of Elections on Friday as they had an open meeting. And what they did was essentially unanimously pass to give the authority for the Board of Canvassers to also reserve their right to close every single polling location, with the exception of one location. This is also within the purview and could easily be interpreted. The canvassing authority would absolutely have the right to exercise their authority on this, and would be, again, within their legal rights to do so. I just wanted to share that. And again, I think that this resolution, again, especially during this important political time, it is our job to protect the rights of our voters.
If I may
Thank you,
respond.
Councilor McCalla.
If I may just.
Councilor McLaughlin.
I didn't participate in that meeting, but I suspect what they did was a technicality to establish that there was the opportunity for a canvassing authority to do something like that, just as they did in June, when they created a voting center in the city, a voting location in Newport for all people who wanted to vote in the presidential primary. I don't see that anything I've suggested goes to the heart of what you want to achieve, which is to maximize voting and to make sure that people who might be impacted by the location of voting sites is robustly taken into consideration. All I'm saying is that we should respect the canvassing authority's responsibility to do that job and not get into the weeds on telling them which polling places they should locate where. And so any language that suggests that there are specific polling places that we think they should reinstate, we don't know all the factors that might go into their decision. It's 750 feet from Park Home to Pell. And Park Home has only been used in one election, and that was in 2018. And prior to that, all the people that voted at Park Home had to go over and vote at Pell. And the reason they created a different polling place there was because there were so many people voting at Pell. I believe the Board of Election told them they needed to come up with a different site. But if Park Home can't be opened, that's probably what they're going to have to do. But I think we have to we have to look to them to make that professional decision. And I have the trust in them to make that decision in accordance with law and with accordance with the guidance and regulations provided by the Board of Elections. So I don't see where my amendment at all strikes to the issue of ensuring everybody gets the most opportunity to vote.
Thank you, Councillor McLaughlin. Councillor Taylor?
I believe that the state was it. I don't know, Councillor McCalla, you're leaving, but I don't know whether that was Board of Canvassers or Board of Elections, but I believe that they were doing what they need to do, providing the canvassers with, or the municipalities with the authority to close it down to a single polling location. We are the council, and as Councillor McLaughlin has said, we speak through resolution. I think we need to do what our job is, which is we need to state clearly what our belief and sentiment is regarding easy access for our citizens who may have the most difficulty voting. And I think it's appropriate to mention Donovan Manor and Park Home Senior Center. And I hope the council makes a strong statement that we stand behind easy access to the polls for all of our residents.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Stegley?
Yes, I just want to say that, I'm going to vote to approve this resolution because obviously voting rights are important and that's and locations are important. But the thing that troubles me about mentioning Donovan Manor is that we are, and we have been keenly aware of the reasons for the canvassing authority to not approve. So I am, I don't understand why Donovan Manor is in this resolution to begin with, when we've known all along that it's because of the COVID-19 and CDC guidelines. So I would like to strike out Donovan Manor if if no one agrees with me, that's fine. I'm still going to vote to approve this.
Thank you, Councillor Stegley. Well, I do think that I'm going to call the question on Councillor McLaughlin's proposed amendment. And before I do that, I would just like to ask Councillor McLaughlin to restate it because there's been a lot of discussion since he originally said it, and I want to make sure everyone knows what it is.
I guess I would ask that the final resolve read that the canvassing authority locate polling places suitable for the residents of those neighborhoods that consider the transportation and mobility concerns of residents served by those polling locations. Sorry, I can't do any better than that right now.
Thank you, Councillor McLaughlin. I am going to call the question on the amendment. Councillor Stegley.
Fine.
Councillor Leonard. You're muted, Councillor Leonard.
Hi.
Councillor McCalla.
Nay.
Councillor McLaughlin.
Aye.
Councillor Napolitano.
Aye.
Councillor Taylor.
Nay.
Mayor Bova, nay. The motion to amend passes. And I would like to once again, just for clarity, one more time to ask you to restate it because that would now be the resolution that we would be voting on.
All right. That the canvassing authority identify voting locations for the residents of neighborhoods that consider the transportation and mobility concerns of residents served by those polling locations.
Okay, is there discussion by the council on the resolution as amended? I do want to open this up to the public. So is there anyone from the public who would like to be heard on this item? Can you please state your full name and address for the record?
Hi, this is Rex LeBeau. Again, my pronouns are they, them, theirs, and I live at 118 Ruggles Avenue. And I have a few comments, but one of the things that I did just want to bring up is that in regards to Donovan Manor, while I would hope that anyone of high risk would vote by mail, so that way they can be as safe as possible in this pandemic. What's right next to Donovan Manor is Chapel Terrace, and a lot of families, a lot of people of color who live in that area, and definitely want to make sure that those folks are being served. And yeah, I think whenever I see polling locations being closed for any reason, yeah, voter suppression is like the first thing that comes to my mind. And the fact that both of these locations are in areas that are right next to areas with where many people of color live in the city, I really do think it is imperative that equity be at the forefront when it comes to our elections. And that means that we pay more attention to people who have been consistently marginalized and had their voting rights denied historically throughout the entire history of this country. So I applaud this resolution being brought up, and I really hope it passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we have the next?
Natalie Harris.
Can you please state your full name and address for the record?
Hi, Natalie Harris, 85 Hillside Avenue, Newport, Rhode Island. And I support the resolution as Councilman McCalla has put it forth to the council. I don't think it should be amended. And I echo what Rex LeBeau also said. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Margaret Martin.
Can you please state your full name and address for the record? You may need to unmute yourself.
I'm sorry. My name is Margaret K. Martin, 48 Admiral Calfus Road, Newport, Rhode Island. I feel that it is important to look at the vast citizens in Newport. And I know that there were mail-in ballots, and probably the majority of the people at Donovan Manor used mail-in ballots, but the majority of the people, not all the people. And not all of the people in the city of Newport have the same accessibility as some of us might have. I'm disappointed that the language about the specifics of the voting areas that need to be addressed was removed. It's very, very important that we are aware and care about the least of our citizens. I know that area. I know how someone in a wheelchair might find it very difficult to get to, for instance, the Edward King House. But moving across Memorial Boulevard at a traffic light that stops traffic to get to Salvation Army Building might be a much more preferred thing to do. I'm upset that amendment was put in, and I am grateful that it seems that the council is willing to say yes to most of the amendment put out by Councilor McCalla. Thank you.
Could I just make a statement, please? I have looked at the maps for Salvation Army location and for the Edward King House. And this Salvation Army is a 6-minute walk from Chapel Terrace, and the Edward King House is an 8-minute walk to from Chapel Terrace. So I just wanted to make that comment. I agree with what everyone is saying here, except that we know that Donovan Manor could not be used. And so I just don't see the point in mentioning Donovan Manor in the resolution, because we know that the CDC guidelines will not allow it. So that's why I agree with the amendment.
Thank you. There's one more person left from the public.
Stephanie Winslow?
Can you please unmute yourself and state your full name and address for the record?
Hi, I'm Stephanie Winslow, 5 Roland Road, Newport. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, thanks. I think, we saw just 2 locations were closed and so many voters chose mail ballots this year, so this may seem benign. It may seem like it was just one of a string of closures related to COVID-19 and therefore perfectly justified. And it might seem like a tiny inconvenience to you or me, but if you are someone who does not have the same flexibility in your schedule as a white-collar employee working from home, who does not have access to cheap or regular transportation, or has limited mobility, or limited or no internet access, or has grown to know these locations as somewhere where you can vote, this is a huge disruption. This is a barrier. And whatever the reasons for closing the polling locations, the end result is the same. Access to voting was made more difficult for some. And situations like this play out all over our country every election day. I think if Newport Public Schools had said no voting possible at Pell and Rogers, we would have worked tirelessly to find suitable alternatives. I wager the answer would have been yes, right away. We've got to do better. So please don't take no for an answer. Be bold. Call out the neighborhoods that need your help. Please use your power to advocate for those who do not have a seat at the table. This country is gearing up for what will easily be the most contested presidential election in living memory. I would strongly encourage our city council and city administration to not underestimate the impact of voter suppression, the repercussions that extend far beyond just a ballot not cast, and the firestorm we will cause if we do not do everything in our power to ensure access to polls on election day. I'm sure every single one of you plans to vote by November 3rd, so just take a moment right now and imagine how you would feel if something prevented you from doing this. I implore you to please work with the Rhode Island Secretary of State, the Board of Elections, our canvassing authority to do everything you can. Please support this resolution and the voices of every Newport voter. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Segley, before Councillor Leonard has had her hand up for quite some time, so I do want to give her the floor.
I have a question. It was my understanding, and maybe somebody can verify this, that Donovan Manor and the Park Home polling locations were closed at the request of the Housing Authority. Isn't that correct? Knowing that Donovan Manor especially would compromise people.
Yes, those were closed by the Housing Authority, and I think that really the goal to say, okay, if we can open those, then let's open them, and if we can't, then let's ensure that we both find suitable replacements and suitably communicate those replacements to the voters that would be displaced.
But so I am right in my remembering, correct? That the Housing Authority actually.
Yes, that's what I said.
Right? So
that's what I said, yes. So it's
so I mean, I think that polling places need to be equitable. I mean, in my ward, for example, you have a lot of elderly people, and I'm one too, and like Earl Avenue and other streets, and I think that we want to make sure everybody can vote, but I think that the canvassing office has really worked diligently in many respects, considering that the request did come from the Housing Authority to make that an equitable solution. So
And
that's what I'll say.
Madam Chair,
Thank you, Councillor Leonard. Councillor Segley?
I just want to remind everyone that in the interest of Second Ward residents, I have reached out several times, and this is how we came to the conclusion of the Edward King Center, and we're waiting to see if it gets approved Friday morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Segley. I think to me, this is a simple issue, and there's some details that we are debating, but I think overall, the crux of it comes down to, can we have the original, like, typical polling locations that we normally have? If no, we want to request that the canvassing authority does their very best, as we, not because we would expect otherwise, but because we would want to just voice our support for them to do their hardest to find equitable and suitable locations, and with those new locations, adequately inform voters of what their polling places will be. I think that the most important thing is to remember about this resolution is really that it is about ensuring not only that people have equitable and suitable places to vote, but also they know what those places are. I think the communication strategy and effectively communicating really can't be overlooked. Is there further discussion on the council?
Madam Chair,
Councilor McLaughlin.
I just take this opportunity to give a shout out to Nellie Gorbea. She's doing a fantastic job. It's going to make this election better, more transparent than any that's been conducted in Rhode Island before. This resolution talks to some deadlines. It's important to note that before our next meeting, the deadline for registering to vote will pass. And we should point that out. I believe that's October the 4th. It's the last day to register to vote. And we've mentioned this in passing as we've discussed this, but I mean, one of the factors that determines how many polling places are open are how many poll workers there are. And it would be easy to have 20 polling places in the city, but if there weren't enough polling workers, you might have just a skeleton crew at each place, and there'd be lines and lines and lines. It's a balance between resources, and I think that we should be encouraging people. And I'm going to give a shout out to Stephanie Winslow, because her aunt was, I think, a new polling worker at the last election. I was really glad to see her aunt doing that. We need more people to volunteer to do that, because I don't think there are too many people who have offered to work at polling places for the upcoming election. So this is a time to give that shout out to those people. Put your name in. We need you.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, I will hold the roll call vote. Councillor Segley?
Aye.
Councillor Leonard? Councillor Leonard, you're muted.
Aye.
Thank you. Councillor McCallum?
Aye.
Councillor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councillor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councillor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes.
Communication from the Newport Prevention Coalition.
Madam Chair, I move that we receive this communication from the Newport Prevention Coalition and recommend approval with the details to be worked out when budget season rolls around, if it's compatible with our budget. Do you want me to tighten that up?
If I could jump in, I think they need the money now.
Yeah, it's for the budget year that we're currently in.
Exactly.
So I'll restate, Councillor Taylor.
I move that we receive this and recommend approval, assuming that the budget details can be worked out with city staff.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. And I do want to make sure that we recognize that in this, we're really referring to the city manager and the city finance director to determine if it is feasible for us to allocate this funding. And I will ask the city manager if he can speak to that, because I do know that it is a very tight year.
Well, yes, Joe Nicholson, city manager. It is indeed a very tight year. We don't know. We don't have a good read on the food and beverage tax. We don't have a good read on the hotel tax. The governor has not promulgated her, or the state hasn't promulgated their budget yet. We haven't sent the car tax bills out because we don't know what's in the state budget. We're not getting our full pilot allocation, or we have not gotten our full pilot allocation. We're getting 1/12 of those, that allocation. So there's a lot of unknowns in municipal government finance. I don't know much about our municipal finances that we iterated to you back in July. So I need to speak with the finance director, and we decimated the capital program for the most part. So even though $28,000 in the grand scheme of things is not a heck of a lot of money, I need to discuss this with the finance director to see where do we go and where are we going and how do we find this money. And I'd like to provide some information to you at maybe the next meeting perhaps as to whether this is even doable under the current circumstances. You know, in the final analysis, we create a budget, and in many respects, even though we do deviate from it, it's important to stick with the budget, even more so this year. And recall that we didn't increase the tax rate either. So things are exceedingly tight and worrisome. January and February are going to be I think we'll have a little more clarity, but we need to look at these things anytime we have these one-offs that are outside of the budget scheme.
Thank you, Mr. Nicholson. Councilor Taylor?
Yeah, I want to apologize to the city manager because we keep loading you up with these little costs tonight. I know that for the last resolution, we just talked about a mail notice to every voter whose polling location would be changed. But I also want to say that I think in these times with the pandemic, given the stresses that people are under and where people go for relief from those stresses, I'm feeling particularly moved by this request. And I hope that, I know you will. I'm urging you and supporting you in giving it serious consideration.
Thank you, Councilor Taylor. I mean, I agree. It's a very important thing to fund if we can do it. I'd
make a comment.
Councilor McLaughlin, you can make a comment, but can I ask you going forward, probably not this meeting, but next time, to use the raise hand button just for housekeeping. But
sure.
Go ahead, Councilor McLaughlin.
Yeah, I think to build on what Councilor Taylor was saying, this money supports an initiative that goes to youth, and during this time of COVID, anything that will help keep youth away from using drugs and alcohol, which is something they might actually tend towards given the increased stresses, is something to be sought after. So I think it's a good thing. I hope we can fund it.
Thank you. I see that we have a member of the public who would like to speak on this item, and I believe it's probably Mr. Camacho. Can we?
Please. Hi, members of council. It's Marco Camacho, chair of the Newport Prevention Coalition and vice chair of the Newport County Prevention Coalition. Also on the line on the Zoom call is Sarah Dinklage, the executive director of Rhode Island Student Assistance Services. So she can answer any questions you also have. I think it's important to note at this time, and we certainly appreciate the challenges that the city of Newport is having with its budget, along with other municipalities this year and the state. right up front, I'd like you to know that we have a little bit of bad news. I'd like to start off with the fact that the city of Newport will not be receiving the $125,000 per year drug-free communities grant. We were hoping that the $28,000 local appropriation for the Student Assistance Council position could be filled with that, as it was in years past, by federal grant dollars. We're not going to have that for this year. Maybe we can have it for next year. We certainly will reapply on behalf of the city come February or March of this year. We anticipate it to the application process to come back live again. I'd also like to reiterate the what Councilor McLaughlin had said when we're speaking about youth substance abuse and prevention. Multiple news outlets have carried the fact that youth substance abuse and even adult substance abuse is on the rise and increasing, especially during the COVID era. This has actually caused even greater problems, for youths, and certainly they're struggling. So the Student Assistance Counselors in this case, for both Thompson and Rogers, will provide direct aid to the students themselves, rather than speaking about an abstract or going through the Newport Police Department or using other intervention processes. I think it's important to note that the city of Newport did, in fact, fund the $24,000 local portion last year for the 5 days per week, and we certainly are grateful. That was approximately 35% of the total cost. This year, we do have, or I should say, we are happy to say that even though it's $28,000, it funds both Thompson and Rogers, and that is approximately a 26% local contribution by the city of Newport to the state and county aid that we were able to secure. I think it's important to also note that the Newport Prevention Coalition takes great pride in not having to make the local ask for money whenever we can avoid it. We have a state block grant and a Partnership for Success grant, also from the state, that pays not only the $26,400 portion of the Student Assistance Counselor, but also provides $10,000 in direct aid to the city of Newport, to the Newport Police. I'd like to thank Mayor Bova and Senator Whitehouse for coming to the Safe Stations presentation and ribbon cutting down with Chief Dugan at the firehouse. That's tens of thousands of dollars in additional aid that we also were able to bring in for the city of Newport. We certainly punch above our weight, but we've reached an impasse to where we cannot finagle any other federal funds to cover the local dollars for at least this specific student assistance counselor position. I understand the gravity of this decision, how much we are asking for, but we've been doing this back and forth for years, even when I was on the council, where the school committee says they can't afford it, we need a full 4% plus, and this becomes a contested line item during budget season. We'd like to take that out and put it solely and exclusively on the city side. The reason we're asking for that is this is not a union position. They are contract positions. We have secured funding on our end, at least the state and county level, for the next 3 years. If there's no local dollars, then I'm afraid that there's likely going to be no local student assistance counselor positions. And again, I understand the gravity of the economics of it, but I would also urge anyone on the school committee or the city council the gravity of not funding this, especially in a re-election year. I don't know how you tell parents, sorry, we couldn't come up with $8,000 to keep your kids off of drugs and alcohol.
Thank
And
you,
again,
Mr.
I'm sorry, I do understand that this is being referred to city administration, and I do look forward to working with the city manager and the director of finance on this to attempt to make this happen. But the ultimate decision is with you guys.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Camacho. I actually really appreciate the passion that you spoke with about the need for this position. And I do agree it is a very important and very pivotal position. And I also think that's something that we ought to think about as we look for the funding is the cost of prevention versus the repercussions of not funding it in terms of issues that come out in the long term with addiction and things of that nature. I think that we see it a lot that it is actually less expensive and more economically responsible to fund prevention for all sorts of things, but especially with addiction treatment and things of that nature, than it is to just wait for the problem to get worse and then fund it then.
Thank you, Mayor Bova. And the problem has certainly gotten worse. It has not gotten better during COVID.
Is there further discussion on the council or any questions for Mr. Camacho? Councilor Taylor?
Thank you. Yeah, Marco, if you don't mind, I'm just going to read from your great closing paragraph, which really struck me. We would not consider that we recognize the financial challenges the city is facing. We would not consider soliciting the city council for $28,000 in funding if we did not believe that the societal value of these SAC positions did not greatly exceed their upfront cost. That says it all. Very eloquent.
Thank you, Councilor. I really appreciate that.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will hold the roll call vote to receive the communication and recommend approval, or recommend the city's manager and the finance director find a way to fund it and bring this back to us with options. I'll hold the roll call vote. Councilor Segling?
Aye.
Councilor Leonard?
Aye.
Councilor McCalla?
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councilor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
COVID-19 status update.
This is the COVID-19 status update, so I will give the floor to the city manager.
Yes, thank you very much. It's Joe Nicholson, city manager. The numbers are much better as reported today. Newport's running total, at least in the running total column, as it were, 173 cases. That's an increase of 5 cases from last week. Now, one of the things we discovered when it's been confirmed is that the Newport's numbers are in the 02840 numbers and the 02841 numbers equal Newport's running total numbers. So if to the extent we want to be somewhat provincial with the 02840, our own zip code, we'll subtract 10 of those cases out of there from 02841, which gets us down to 163. The interesting thing about that is that the zip code numbers still don't match up, and there's a delta difference of about 5. The zip code number reports it as 157. Doesn't really matter. It's a few cases in between. The most important thing I think to get out of this is that that we had few cases, only 5. That our percentage of positive cases is very low, 2%. A month ago, I think we were around 3%. So we're trending. We're generally, Newport is trending in the right direction. There's 86 hospitalizations in Rhode Island. That's not necessarily a good number. That ticked up from last week. And you're all familiar with the concerns that the governor has iterated today on her press conference about colleges in general. And so we're keeping an eye on things locally. and from a state perspective, but that seems to be the focus right now is problems with regard to Providence College, my alma mater, Chris Band's alma mater, has had some problems in the last few days, and purportedly is the reason why we're getting some further travel restrictions on Rhode Islanders. But all in all, I would say I'd like to think that the efforts that we're making are working, that we should continue with what we're doing. And the 5 is a good number, quite frankly, to the extent there are going to be any numbers at all. Any questions on the numbers, please?
Well, I did want to ask it. Sorry, I'm not sure if you stated this, but just comment that the percentages of positive has really remained steady.
Yeah, 2%. And actually,
yeah.
Jamie, a month ago, and I'll use a month ago, maybe it's a bit longer, but we were at 3%. So we're 2% is a good number. We're at the lower end of the spectrum on these things. So I think people should be happy, but continue to be diligent about their mask wearing, washing their hands, and socially distance. That's the key. Just anecdotally, when the governor was talking about Providence College today, she reflected on it that they couldn't attribute the cases up there, the spread up there, to large parties, but what she attributed it to, or what they're attributing it to, is the lack of stable groups, the lack of mask wearing, and the like, and hence the issue of social distancing comes into the paradigm. So it's those 3 things, those 3 fundamental things, and if as Newporters we stick with those things, then we'll be better off. Mask wearing, washing our hands, socially distancing one another. And the stable groups seem to be the important thing. And I know and Chris does too, Chris Bean, we know the Eaton Street corridor very well up in Providence, and we probably experienced it, 40 years ago. So it's tightly packed houses and, kind of a freewheeling neighborhood when it comes to the off-campus students. Something to keep an eye on. The next topic I had on the agenda were masks. The volunteers are going to continue to work hard, and we'll be out this weekend. I am getting another allocation of masks from the state of Rhode Island. Another 4,000 will be delivered Friday. We're out of what we had, so we've given out probably close to 11,000 masks in the last few months, and that's pretty good. The volunteers have done real great service for the city of Newport, and I like to think that it's why our numbers are where they are. So the last item that I have on the agenda.
Oh, Joe, can I chime in on masks? I don't want you to forget to say that the Salve students are getting on board. And
oh yes.
Yeah,
yes, that's great. Can always use more volunteers.
Yeah, but it's a double win, because I hear that the students are already on board with mask wearing, but I think getting them to give out masks just reinforces that, and it certainly will rejuvenate our volunteers to have young people joining them.
Yes. Well, I was there anyway, Susan, so I was joining them. So
yeah, you can't be everywhere at once, Joe.
So the last item we have on the agenda, the Take It Outside initiative that you're all familiar with, that the governor announced, I think, literally a week ago. The RFP, the state is posting $1 million for businesses to continue, I guess in the case of Newport, to continue to operate outside in the cooler environment. The RFP was posted on Thursday, I believe, and it was due yesterday at 5, at least the first round. And we were able to, it's competitive money. We were able to submit an RFP as of 5 o'clock yesterday. We submitted it for the full amount, which is $150,000 for tents and heaters and some other miscellaneous equipment with regard to tents and heaters. And there have been 80 applications that have been submitted around the state for this competitive money. The money has to be used, or the equipment has to be used, or the idea is to use it between September 28th and December 30th. The Commerce Rhode Island is meeting, their board is meeting Monday, and we'll make a determination on those 80 applicants as to who is entitled to the money. But we put together a pretty strong application, and so I'm optimistic that we'll get something out of this. And what I did was I did a kind of a very informal canvassing of businesses as to what they needed, and they pointed towards tents and they pointed towards heaters. So that's what we have pursued on their behalf as an intermediary. The award can only go to nonprofits and to intermediaries, and we're acting as an intermediary on behalf of the business community to try to help them out to take it outside to extend their season, hopefully, or clearly into the late December, and maybe even further, because the governor indicated today in a press conference that she may post some further funds. $1 million is not a lot of money, and there's I think I'm surprised at the number of applicants, but I don't know what the range of value on some of these applicants are. I know that we requested the maximum. Middletown's requested the maximum. The Chamber of Commerce has requested some funds. So we'll see what comes out Monday, and hopefully we'll be successful. And we are poised to move forward right when the money hits us to outfit some of these businesses that we've spoken with, so that they can continue to perpetuate their season. Any questions? And that's really all I have this evening.
Well, thank you very much, Joe, and thanks to the staff for the hard work, I'm sure, in putting together that application on such a quick turnaround.
Yeah, 4 days. I think it was 4 days.
Yeah.
Right.
I have a small question. Joe, do you have any idea whether they might do partial funding of the grants? In other words, approve?
I gotta believe that that's what may happen. We priced out everything. I mean, we literally did a price list of what we thought we needed down to power extension cords. Now, I don't know whether they're going to do partials. There's going to be a second round of funding as well. I think that may be due October 6th. And so, if we don't get what we need this time, and even if we do, we're going to apply in the second round again, I think. There's some other issues that some of the organizations around that we spoke with, that we're trying to team up with, didn't get their proposals in because it required some posting of some upfront funds with regard to how they wanted to assist businesses. So I think maybe the second round we'll team up with them and try to get and see what happens.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion or questions from the city manager?
If not, Madam Chair, I move that we adjourn as council.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to adjourn. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I will hold the roll call vote. Councillor Segley?
Aye.
Councillor Leonard?
Gone.
Yeah. Councillor McCalla?
Aye.
Councillor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councillor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councillor Taylor? Mayor Boba? Aye. The motion passes. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.